Okay, so my name is Ross Miller. I'm one of the tutors here at Seeds, and um, there was a recording from last week in the middle of May where we went over part of this adjective and adverb worksheet. So if you are watching this one, this is the worksheet that we did. We did adjectives, tab M, language, adjectives and adverbs, and I'm guessing number 7 is the worksheet number. So what we did the last time that I went over this, if you're interested, is we did page 57 and 58. And what I'm going to try to do today is page 59 and 60, and that will wrap up adjectives. Adverbs start on page 61. So I'm going to hover on page 57 if you want to take a screenshot or anything about it. It basically goes over adjectives and what they are and the form of adjectives. There are two forms, comparative and superlative. All of this stuff I went over the last time, so I'm not going to go over it much this time. You should be able to find that recording if you want to go over more of comparative and superlative forms. We did numbers 1 through 10 on page 57, and then we had some practice on page 58 where we wrote the correct form of each adjective, comparative or superlative, and then we corrected these sentences down here, 7 through 14. So that was it for the last recording. So what I'm going to concentrate on today is apply, and we'll do page 59, and then we'll do page 60, which is a checkup, kind of multiple choice. And then if there's any time at the end, we'll start on adverbs, but my goal is to just get through 59 and 60 today to kind of wrap up adjectives. So what we're doing here is, all we're doing is we're just writing two adjectives to describe each noun. So what I would do, I have access to drawing tools, so I'll write a couple of these down, and then for you, you can always pause and do the whole sheet on your own. You can watch me do a couple and then do the rest on your own. I don't want to fill them all out. I'll fill out a couple and then you can try it on your own, and then we can move on from there. So we're just writing two adjectives to describe each noun. So if I grab the pen and we'll do blue. So write two adjectives. So tree. So picture a tree in your head, and we'll do one adjective. A pretty easy one would be, it's a big tree. So remember, an adjective is something describing a noun. So maybe it's a big tree. What about a shirt? A very good and common adjective is a color. So I'm wearing right now gray. So we'll say gray. Picture a river in your head. How would you describe a river? I'm going to say it's deep, a deep river. And then an idea. I am going to try to jump over my neighbor's fence. That's a bad idea, right? So that is how you would do this. So I'm going to leave you to come up with 4 adjectives on your own. And that's what you can do. You'll do those 4 on your own, and then come back, pause it, try 4 on your own, and then come back and we'll do the rest of the worksheet. Okay, so hopefully you paused and you came up with some other adjectives to describe tree, shirt, river, and idea. So that's what we'll do. Go ahead and fill those out if you haven't already. So the next part down here talks about completing each sentence. by writing an adjective on the line. Use the correct form for any comparisons. So what this is telling you is there might be some comparisons. So if we go back up here, let me clear off the drawings. Remember, comparisons. If you are comparing if you're comparing two things, you're going to use a different form. You'll use comparative form. If you are comparing three or more objects, you will use the superlative form of the adjective. So that's what when you're comparing adjectives. So it depends. Comparative is two. Superlative would be three or more. So let's keep that in mind. And it goes over a couple things here, some rules that we looked at last time about many, more, or most, little, less, or least. And it talks about the comparative and superlative forms. So that's what we're going to be doing down here. So we'll get our drawing tool. We'll take out our pen. I'll do a couple, and then if you don't even want to listen to me, you can pause and try number 5 through 12 on your own. We're going to work on 5 through 12 right now. So if you don't even want to see what I write, pause and just try them out on your own. If you want a little bit of help or see what I do, then we'll go over it in just 5 seconds. Okay, so number 5 says, this is the blank pizza I've ever tasted. So what kind of pizza would you write down here? For me, I automatically think this is the best. This is the best pizza I've ever tasted. So we're playing around with the superlative form here. If we scroll up just to double check, this is where we are here. Good is just normal form of adjective. Better would be if we're only comparing two things. Which pizza is better? You're looking at two pizzas. Best would be three or more. So this one here, number 5, this is the best pizza. So out of the hundreds of pizzas that you've tried, right? I've tried hundreds. This is the best pizza I've ever tasted. So you're comparing more than two, so that means you use a superlative form. Which of the 7 continents is the what? I might say smallest. Again, smallest. So I'm going to put a little s here because we used the superlative form in number 5. Number 6, how many things are we comparing? We're comparing 7. So which form of the adjective are we going to use? We'll use superlative because we're comparing more than 2 things. Which of the 7 continents is the smallest? I'll do one more. I picked blank tomatoes from the garden. What do you think you might put in here? I'm going to say rotten. I picked rotten tomatoes. Oops, right? This is not really a comparison. Use the correct form for any comparisons. Number 7, there really isn't a comparison. So you could have said, I picked 3 tomatoes from the garden, or I picked juicy tomatoes from the garden, or I picked red tomatoes, or rotten, or spicy, something like that. So I will let you pause here. You can do 8 through 12, and then I'll run through them and just put in some examples for you. Okay, so number 8, what my thought process here is, we are comparing 2 people, Nick and Brian. So that means if we use an adjective, we're going to be using the comparative form because we're only comparing two. So we're going to say Nick is faster. How about that? Faster than Brian, because we're only comparing two. You could have said Nick is bigger than Brian, or Nick is smaller than Brian, or Nick is smarter than Brian. You're using the comparative form because you're only comparing two things. Number 9, blank leaves fell to the ground. How about crunchy? Crunchy leaves, in the fall. Is there a comparison here? We're not comparing anything. We're just describing leaves. So we don't have to worry about the form. They're just crunchy or heavy or wet or orange, right? Number 10, is Mount Rushmore blank than Stone Mountain? Hopefully when you were doing this, you realized, okay, we're only comparing two things. So this is a comparative form, right? Only comparing two things. So this is comparative. Is Mount Rushmore blank than Stone Mountain? How about further? That's distance. So distance can be an adjective. Is it far? Is it close? Is Mount Rushmore closer? Is Mount Rushmore bigger? Maybe you came up with one of those. Further, bigger. Is it, closer? Is it, I don't know. Maybe you came up with another word to describe this one. But you should have noticed that it's in comparative form because we're only comparing two things. The blank waves overturned the boat. For this one, again, there's no comparison. We're just describing waves. How about just something pretty easy? The big waves. As long as you're picking a word that's describing waves, you'll be fine. It can be big waves or fast waves. It doesn't have to be anything difficult. It can be something easy. The stormy waves, something like that. Some word that's the green, the blue waves, something describing waves. Last, number 12, Rennell is the blank of the 3 Jefferson sisters. Hopefully you notice that we're comparing 1, 2, 3 sisters here. So what form do we use? We're going to use superlative. Let's do smartest. A lot of the time, the superlative is going to end in est. Superlative will end in est. Rennell is the smallest. Look, just like number 6. 6 and 12 are pretty similar because we're comparing 3 or more. Look, which of the 7 continents, which of the 3. So we're doing superlative. Rennell is the fastest of the 3 Jefferson sisters. Rennell is the quietest of the 3 Jefferson sisters. See, you're going to be using the superlative form. So when you're going through adjectives, you want to try to think about how many nouns is it comparing. If it's 2, you're going to do comparative. If it's 3 or more, you'll do superlative. 13 through 16 is kind of on your own. Use each adjective in a sentence. Least expensive, lazier, rarest, more playful. So I'm not going to go over those. There's such a variety of ways that you can do it. But maybe you would do, like for number 13, which car is the least expensive, right? Or which computer is the least expensive? So it can be a very simple sentence like that. Here's a good question for number 14. How many nouns would you be comparing with lazier? How many things are you comparing if you are saying lazier? 2, 3, 30. With lazier, you're going to be comparing two things. Joe is lazier than Steve, right? Billy is lazier than Bertha. That means what form are we going to be using when we write our sentence? Comparative or superlative for number 14. If we're only comparing two things, we use comparative. That's how you would go through this. You've got rarest and more playful for the last two. So if you want to pause, you can do 13 through 16. You can take snapshots of it. You can rewind. You can fast forward. Right now, I'm going to pause for just a few seconds, and I'm going to move on to page 60 as we go through. All right, I'm going to clear off the writing here. If you need it, just pause. But I'm going to erase the drawings, and then we'll scroll down to do a checkup, and then this will be the last page that we do. We have eight sentences to do on this one. So we'll get back here. I'll change my pen color to orange, just for fun. Read each set of sentences. Choose a sentence in which adjective is written correctly. So I'll do number 1 and number 2 up here, and then you can try 3 and 4. So I will kind of just take you through how I would do this. So we're doing adjectives, chocolate, and sometimes if you say it to yourself, you'll hear it and you'll be like, this one doesn't make any sense. So letter A is a perfect example. Chocolate ice cream is gooder than vanilla. Chocolate ice cream is gooder than vanilla. That doesn't even make any sense to me. Gooder is not a word. So what I do, a good practice for you is when you're going through multiple choice, cross it off. This is a good book. That sounds right. Sounds right. Let's go through the others. I traded my car for a more better one. No, you don't even need the word more. I traded my car for a better one. So that makes letter C incorrect. He got the most good deal of all. Most good does not make sense. He got the most good. So we're correct here. Our instincts were correct. This is a good book. Let's try number 2. Jamie gets more fearfuler as a storm approaches. Fearfuler is not a word. Fearfuler, not a word. So we can cross off F. G says the road is more iciest than it was earlier. This does not agree. More iciest. It does not make any sense the way that it's written. The road is more iciest. H. A collie was judged the bestest dog in the show. It would make sense if it was a collie was judged the best dog. Bestest is not a word. So let's just make sure that letter J makes sense. He is less confident than he was last year. He is less confident than he was last year. That makes sense. Less confident is, it agrees. The form of the adjective is correct in letter J. So your job is to do number 3 and number 4, pause it, try 3 and 4, do it as I did it, and then we'll go back and review it together. Okay, number 3. Let's go through letter A. Drew had a severe headache. That one makes sense to me so far. Drew had a severe headache. What kind of a headache? It was severe. Was the pipe longest enough for the job? Doesn't sound right. If it said long enough, was the pipe long enough for the job, it would be correct. This color is a more deeper blue than I wanted. Again, more deeper is an extra word. This color is a deeper blue. It can't be more deeper. It's just deeper. Letter D, which ocean is biggest? The Atlantic or the Pacific? Which ocean is biggest? So I had to think for a second with letter D, because how many things are we comparing in letter D? Atlantic, Pacific, that's it. The adjective is biggest, but biggest is in superlative form, and it can't be in superlative form because we're only comparing two things. It needs to be in comparative form. So to put this into comparative form would be bigger. So if it said which ocean is bigger, that would be correct. But the form doesn't agree. Do you see that one? That was a tricky one. I had to think about letter D for a second. So we're correct. If you got letter A, give yourself a round of applause for number 3. Number 4, my watch is even more slower than the clock. I'm hoping that you start to see a pattern with these. Even more slower does not make sense. My watch is, you don't even need the words even more. My watch is slower. Even more slower are extra, and they don't make any sense. Letter G, the storm was most wildest during the night. That one just doesn't sound right to me. The storm was most wildest during the night. Let's leave G. I don't think it's right. Maybe we can find one. She is the most likely candidate for mayor. That one also sounds pretty good to me. She is the most likely candidate. Let's see if we can eliminate J. I put the ice cream in the freezer to keep it more cooler. Okay, more cooler. It can't be more cooler. It just is cooler. I put the ice cream in the freezer to keep it. Actually, it's probably just cool. I put the ice cream in the freezer to keep it cool, right? You don't have to say more cooler. You're just saying cool. So I'm going to say the answer is H. She is the most likely candidate for mayor, because letter G just doesn't make sense. The storm was most wildest during the night. I mean, maybe it's the storm was wildest during the night. You're not really comparing. You're just kind of describing the storm. So see, sometimes when you get a multiple choice question, you don't necessarily have to know the rules. You can go through sometimes and eliminate answers. So for the number 4, I'm very confident that H is the right answer. I'm having trouble explaining letter G, but it just doesn't make sense the way that it's written. So let me go down and we'll do 5, 6, 7, and 8 also. And that'll be the last thing that we do today. All right, I'm going to erase all of these drawings. So if you need to take a screenshot or picture or anything, just make sure you do that. All right, so we're going to look at the underlined adjectives in each sentence and choose the answer that is the correct form for each underlined adjective. So this is a little different than above. So I'm just going to do number 5, and then I'm going to let you try the others. And I'll change my pen color because I can. We'll do dark green. All right. 5, Sal bought the most popularist video game on the market. Bought the most popularist. Okay, I'm just looking at this and I know that this is not correct. So letter D is out because it's not correct. So the best thing that you can do is just read it with each answer substituted in. Sal bought the more popular video game on the market. Sal bought the popularist video game on the market. Sal bought the most popular. I hope that you see that the one that makes the most sense is most popular. And let me scroll up a minute here to the forms of the adjectives. So what I'm looking at over here is a few special adjectives: many, more, and most. So remember, this one down here is talking about video games. So we're comparing video games here, right? How many video games are we comparing? It's more than two, right? Because it's the most popular video game out there right now. So that's thousands, right? Maybe you play video games, or you have a child that plays video games. Sal bought the most popular. So for this one, most is the superlative form, and that makes sense. It's the most popular. I'll pause it and let you do 6, 7, and 8, and then we'll come back and work on 6, 7, and 8, and then we'll be done. Okay, so number 6 says, please bring me the book that is closest to you. That sounds kind of right to me. Maybe you pick letter J. Let's just go through them and see if they make any sense. Please bring me the book that is more closer to you. Please bring me the book that is most closest. G, I know, is wrong because something can't be the most closest. It just is the closest. You're already saying that it's the most. If you have, let's say, some books on a table and there is one that's the closest to you, right? It's not the most closest. It's already the closest. So it can't be the most closest, right? It's closest. Please bring me the book that is the most closer. That one doesn't make sense because most is superlative and closer is comparative. So they don't agree. Most, closer. Plus, something can't be most closer. It's just closer, right? If you have two books, you would say this one is closer than the other one, right? You would be using the comparative form. This one is closer. If there's more than two books, you would use closest. So please bring me the book that is more closer. Does not make sense. So this is closest. This one is J. It's correct as it is. 7, your puppy is no worser than mine about chewing things. Okay, that one right away does not sound right to me. I'm going to cross off letter D. Let's go. Your puppy is no badder than mine. Does not make sense. It's no badder. The form of the word bad does not fit. Your puppy is no worsest than mine. Again, this is the comparative form, and then this is superlative, but if we look up in the rules, I'm pretty sure it's going to say worse is not that kind of a word. So it's right here. I don't know if you can see here, I'll use the spotlight. I think I can use that. Maybe not. So change the word. So bad, worse, or worst. So bad is regular form, worse is comparative form, worst is superlative. So we'll go back down, grab our pencil, our pen. So your puppy is no worse. That's the only one that makes sense. Your puppy is no worse than mine about chewing things. So let me go back up one more time here. Worse would be, so we're comparing two puppies, right? Yours and mine. So that's where we get worse. You see it here in the middle? Hopefully you can see it. Bad, worse, or worst. Worse is written in comparative form. Okay? So C for comparative. Let's put a little C for comparative because we're only comparing two things. Your puppy and my puppy. Last one, letter 8. Is your friend a more safer driver than you are? Again, I can tell right away it's not correct. You can't be more safer than somebody. You can be safer, but not more safer. So is your friend a safer driver? That sounds right. Let's look at G. Is your friend a safe driver than you are? Might be, but it's in the wrong form. We're comparing again, right? We're comparing how many things? Two. You and your friend. So that means we use the what form? Comparative or superlative? We are using C for comparative. Only comparing two things, you and your friend. Safest, what form is that in? What form? That's in superlative form, so that cannot be right. Safer, the E and the R, if you remember from the other recording, that is a great example of the comparative form. So we would put a little square around F. Hopefully in the next recording, we'll go down into the adverbs and we'll start on adverbs. Adverbs are a little bit more difficult than adjectives, but that would be my plan, is the next recording. If nobody else does adverbs, I'll start in on adverbs and we'll start to talk a little bit more about what adverbs are. So if you need to watch anything else, you can pause, you can rewind, but I appreciate you watching and I hope you learned some about adjectives. And this kind of concludes this worksheet on adjectives. It was, I think, 4 pages long, pages 57 through 60. So thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.